Hey there guys, it's Mark, and today we're going to be starting a sub-series of the previous series that we've been doing on the Battle for Azeroth beta, where we're going to start making distinct comparisons between all 6 tanks. If you guys were present on the channel in 2016 when we started the Legion beta, we did a lot of this for about 5 months. This was the bread and butter of the channel, and obviously going through Legion, we did a lot of tier lists, a lot of straight comparisons, and it's something that gets brought up all the time on the stream, even by new people coming in just asking my opinion. So I figured we'll start with this. My ultimate goal here is to have all the tanks to have an abundant experience with both. Ideally, that would mean all of them at 120 and adequately geared, at least for heroics, you know, just to be able to compare side by side. The problem is right now my Death Knight is considerably more geared and progressed than the others, so I have to catch those up. But this is going to kind of be an episode 0 of sorts. I like to use that as a starting point. A lot of people have already asked me how I feel about the tanks, and that's something that I can answer now, even though I haven't been able to play them. So eventually we'll have more empirical comparisons like we do with the tier lists, etc. Talk about their strengths and weaknesses in raiding, 5-mans, etc. One of the good things about this is we'll actually be able to compare their threat and their threat means as well. That's another point of comparison, this expansion. But anyway, so yeah, we'll start. I'm just going to quickly go through all 6 tanks. I'm going to tell you my experiences so far. This weekend I did a lot of dungeons, a lot of leveling, spent a lot more time on the beta than I pretty much have in the last month, all in about a 3-day span, and it's only 2 o'clock right now, so I got another 8 hours ahead of me here before I have to go to bed here, and it's going to be all spent on the beta basically. So anyway, so we'll start with Demon Hunter. I'll do Blood last because it's the one I've played and talked about the most, but I will talk about Blood as well because there's some things that I want to update you guys on. So we're going to start with Demon Hunter. If you guys have watched the live stream from this weekend, you obviously see that I played Demon Hunter a lot. I did want to switch it up a bit, played Warrior a bit. We'll talk about that. But Demon Hunter is, I will be getting it to 120 today. So regardless, I think they're in an interesting spot. They're still extremely active. Basically, to me, they're exactly the same as they were in Legion. I don't really see many differences. They did gain the new talent, or not talent, obviously. Well, they did gain some new talents, but that's a whole nother video. They gained the new spell that Blood DK used to have, DK in general used to have. Consume Magic basically just steals, it's a debuff. Or a buff for the target. It steals them and it gives you the power, whatever, pain or whatever it's called. So that's good, but it doesn't really change. I don't know. I don't look at their kit as fundamentally improved. A lot of people have told me that they're extremely strong, and I worry about this because after playing them, it just seems like they're overpowered in some ways. They seem to do an exorbitant amount of damage, more damage than any other tank, and not as much more than as I thought after I've done some other tanks. But still, they're clearly the top DPS tank, and it seems like it's quite a large gap that they are such. But regardless, that's obviously going to play very well for them in the threat model. Even if that doesn't stay, gets nerfed slightly, it's still going to be very high burst thanks to Spirit Bomb or whatever. And their mobility is still extremely good. But to me, the biggest problem with Demon Hunter is that they are extremely bland. They have almost they basically only have 2 rotational abilities. Now, it's most common for tanks to have about 4 rotational abilities, and then that's abilities that you press very, very frequently, right? Like constantly in the rotation, you're cycling between the 2, right? So most have a builder and a spender, and then some type of auxiliary abilities. The problem with Demon Hunter is the 4 that they have, 2 of them are on a 10+ second CD, and obviously that'll get shorter as we go. But still, out of the gate, it's a 10+ second CD, which effectively means that 50%, if not more, maybe 60% of your button presses are going to either be Fracture or Spirit Bomb. I know those are talents, so again, they might end up not being they might not end up being taken on live for some reason, but out of the gate, I think that those are the 2 strongest things. So, yeah, I'm not in love with Vengeance. Everybody tells me that it's the strongest tank right now, and I'm not necessarily sure why, other than it seems to be overpowered, which will eventually be changed. So that was my opinion on Demon Hunter. I had some fun playing them. I still really like the whole kind of like jump through the air, do all this kind of. The animations are great too. That's probably the thing that I could say the most about. So. On to Paladin. Now, this was last weekend's live stream. We did a Paladin 1 to 120 or 110 to 120. It was actually really cool. I enjoyed it. In fact, I had a lot more fun on Paladin than I expected, and part of that is because of some new changes that they got last week. So hopefully you've caught up on that. This isn't that kind of video. I can't really spend time talking about that, but They got a lot of new stuff, a lot of new changes, a brand new talent, which I've yet to properly try, but they seem like they're in a very balanced state. And I could say that about Prop Paladin in Legion as well. It's not necessarily the most true thing, but they're comfortably middle of the pack at worst. You know what I mean? And at best, they could be considered a top tier tank, but realistically, again, I feel like the same problems arise. They kind of lack that niche, that thing that they're gonna crush other tanks in. They just don't really have it. Some people thought it might be damage, clearly not the case on the beta. Some people thought it might be survival, clearly not the case on the beta. I don't know. Mobility's weak, but what I will say is, they have a very well-rounded kit. Still the only tank with a flat-out immunity. So if that's ever a thing that you need, you're the only tank with it. They still have a cheat death, a massive damage reduction. They have, in my opinion, one of the best. Not it's just because of numbers, but not the best active mitigation. But that active mitigation has become an incredibly potent offensive. It basically, it was in the previous expansion, but now it's an AOE, so they're even better offensively in dungeons. And their self-heal is extremely capable. In fact, I definitely like Prop Pally self-healing more than Demon Hunter self-healing. So right now, if I had to pick between that front, it would definitely be Paladin number 2, minus Blood, obviously. So I'm really satisfied with them. I think they're very fun. And if I was, wasn't playing a Blood DK, I would definitely consider playing a Prop Paladin. But we will definitely be doing that more. I just want to get all these other tanks to 120. And then my idea is to kind of cycle through all the tanks, do dungeons, maybe a live stream where I do a dungeon on all 6 tanks, cycling through them, and we could kind of give our opinions. Hopefully I can find a way to make that interesting. Now, I did start playing Warrior quite a bit. As you see, he's got some gear. This was yesterday. I should have probably finished the Demon Hunter, but I wanted to try to get started on some other tanks, so I spent some time on Warrior and Bear. And Warrior is actually really, really, really fun. Warrior is, without question, the most fun I've had tanking this build, whatever, these last 2-3 weeks. I enjoyed Paladin and Demon Hunter. I've been playing those too, but Warrior is actually extremely fast-paced, extremely exciting. The whole charge thing, charge plus heroic leap in a world where tanks have really slowed down their pacing, minus a couple outliers. It feels extremely engaging. And even out in the world, and even in world PvP, I feel really it's quite active. It's a lot more active than it used to be. But again, the same problem arises. If you take the Devastator talent, which I think, first of all, is one of the coolest talents in the entire game, and I will always take it no matter what's the proper min-max there. I think it's an amazing talent. But of course, it removes a button. So now that's not necessarily a bad thing. It just bakes it into your auto attack, which, it's still there, but you're not pressing it. So I've immediately noticed that, as this current setup, this talent setup that I was using, Prot Warrior basically, again, falls in the same problem that Vengeance Demon Hunter has. They only have 2 rotational abilities. But that's not true because they have Thunderclap. I don't necessarily know how Thunderclap is meant to fit into the rotation. They were given Shockwave baseline, which is extremely strong, and they have a talent that can modify it, of course, but I don't know, one way or the other, I think everything else is just better than Demon Hunter, if you ask me. Their mobility feels more interesting. Their defensive kit seems extremely strong. They are, if you ask me, they are the second best magic tank. I haven't given every tank a proper shot yet. We'll make these assertions when we make the proper comparison video. But I think Prot Warrior is going to clearly stand as the second best magic tank, simply because of Ignore Pain and coupled with, of course, Spell Reflect, which is very good. But unfortunately, their massive, massive weakness, and the reason that I unfortunately probably won't play this spec in live is because they have no real self-healing. Now, they did get a really cool change with the combination of a talent, a bolster plus Last Stand. Now heals you for an absolute ton, but it's still on a really long CD, so it's kind of just like a weaker lay in hands. It's not even really a weaker lay in hands. It's considerably weaker. I don't know. It's interesting. It's a very interesting combination, and I would love to see Prot Warrior get more self-healing in their kits, but we know that's not what they're going for. Some downsides, of course. Ignore Pain is a shell of its former self. They probably could have just left it gone because at this point it seems really bad. I don't know. If you guys know more about this than I do, please let me know, but it does seem like shield block is going to be extremely strong. Their defensive elements in general, they have a very wide defensive kit, and they have some of the best utility in the game, if you ask me, because they have Commanding Shout. This is a really big deal. Commanding Shout is an extremely strong ability, and previously was only available to DPS warriors, that is, and I think they are now the only tank. Again, if I'm wrong, just let me know. I think they are the only tank with this type of utility. Blood DK obviously had a very potent group-wide utility in 7.3.5 and 7.2 onward, but that's gone. So I think Warrior Tank is now the go-to utility for basically any situation, and I may end up maining or alting it because, if there's ever a reason to switch from a Blood DK, it might be to go to a tank that potentially could spell reflect a dangerous ability. I don't know how that's going to work in raids or serious 5-mans, but or they might need the health CD. So this is very interesting to me, and I am slowly growing my interest for Prot Warrior. But like I said, the one big thing that really keeps me not interested is their self-healing. If they just had some kind of reliable self-heal, I mean, you could take Impending Victory, which I think is good, but I don't know. It's not my favorite option. So, but anyway, Prot Warrior now. So this is where things start to get really off the handles here. So we talked about Demon Hunter being the top DPS tank, and I still believe that's true. Prot Paladin, doing pretty good DPS because of wings and the bursts that they have available. But Prot Warrior really takes the cake for me. They've been given Avatar baseline, which I think is, oh boy, yet another. So there's basically 2 tanks that have a straight up DPS increase, and giving it to Warrior is going to be very interesting because I already thought of them as a very high burst but low sustained tank, and this really gives them even more credit as such. But then they also have a big DPS talent row, and you could take Dragon Roar. So basically, Avatar plus Dragon Roar equals threat. If I was going to compare the threats right now, I would probably say that Prot Warrior is going to be the best threat keeper in the expansion, just because of that combination. It's really only going to matter for AoE, and they have a very, 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 very good AoE burst combo. But again, Dragon Roar 35-second CD. I believe it was 25 in a previous build, so it's already been nerfed. Avatar, I think, is like a minute. I'm not really sure about that. We'll talk about that in the future. But regardless, they have an incredible damage kit, a very, very high burst damage kit, and just like on my Demon Hunter, the few dungeons I did on my Warrior, off stream, I was the top DPS on all AoE, so that's very cool. Now we'll move on to Bear. I did some limited exploration as Bear. I did a couple quests and a couple dungeons. Spent the least time out of the top 5 here on Bear this weekend, but it is still something that I would really like to play. I have a soft spot for it in my heart because it was something that I really, really liked playing back in Classic on Nostalrius when we were playing private servers back in the day. And I've always kind of grown fond of it, but the modern incarnation of Bear, no pun intended, modern incarnation of Bear is, I don't know, it seems to lack something for dungeons. I'm not really sure. Now that was kind of made up for with legendaries and Legion, but unfortunately those legendaries are gone, not returning, and the artifact really was an important thing for Bear in 5-mans, and again, also not returning. So, to me, Bear is the weakest damaging tank by a large margin. I was regularly struggling to do more than 2k DPS on even larger packs, which is a real problem. Thrash and Swipe, of course, are effectively your only AoE damage, but I will have to warn you guys of something very interesting. We'll talk about again in the future if this changes. The Brambles, the top tier talent, first talent that is, the left side on the talent tree, I believe it's called Brambles, something like that. It's basically giving you Thorns back, which, again, in Classic, if you watched my live streams back in the day, you would know that that was your top damage, was lashback damage. And that was something that I always liked about Classic tanking. But it's kind of the same here for Bear. My top damage by a mile on AoE was Brambles. And then, of course, it turns Ironbark into an offensive CD. So really the big problem I have in general here is that Bear, compared to all the other tanks, and really, I don't know, Brewmaster might suffer this too, but they don't have a burst offensive CD. What's going on here? Who's designing this shit? Like every other tank that we've talked about right now has one massive burst offensive ability, and Bear doesn't. So I'm assuming this is the number saying this is why I'm not making a video about this, straightly comparing them side by side on an isometric scale. We're just talking, okay, we're just giving opinions, and right now my opinion is that Bear is, without question, inept at offense. And that's not necessarily fun when you're tanking. People are constantly pulling threats, but it does remind you of the old days, so it's actually quite interesting. In terms of defense, however, it's the complete opposite. I don't even know what they have in their kit because I've explored it so little, but I never took damage, like never. I'm talking about never. I was never below like 75% health when I did the couple dungeons I did. And of course, it's normal, so that's why we're going to wait till we're 120 to make these proper videos. But I was really surprised by that, and we did the LFR on Friday, and we had a similar situation. There was a bear tank who he pretty much solo tanked the whole fight. He never needed any help. I don't know. It was very interesting. So to me, I don't know necessarily why, because Ironbark, or not Ironbark, what's it called? Iron Fur. Iron Fur is not as strong as Demon Spikes, not as strong as Shield Block. It doesn't seem as strong anyway. I guess it's the fact that you could have it up so much more frequently. I guess I'm not really sure. But Bear on paper to me looks like a very, very weak tank. And I think it is a very weak tank for offense. But in actual play, he seems incredibly bulky. So I don't know. If there was going to be one thing that I would like to see, it's that Bear either get some of their artifact or legendary effects back in the game somehow, or I don't know, they need a massive buff to offense one way or the other. Now, Brewmaster is the tank that I have the least interest in and the least experience in as well. I'm not going to lie to you guys, I literally wish they weren't a tank, because this is really just kind of selfish of me, but I love them so much in MoP, and I'm still bitter about the changes coming through Legion. Even in WoD, they were really fun with Chi Explosion, but now it's just, I don't know, it's hard to play them without Guard and Elusive Brew. I wish they were back. If Guard and Elusive Brew were back in the game, I would seriously consider re-rolling from Blood DK. That would probably be the only thing that would actually take me away from Blood DK. So I did a single dungeon with Brewmaster, and I didn't really learn anything about them. But I will say that they're a similar situation to, you know, they're kind of in the same trends that we talked about. You know, their mitigation kit is always, in my opinion, inferior for 5-mans. I think you'll find the same again in this expansion. If you guys differ from that, please let me know why. But I think, again, without a lack, they have a massive lack of a self-heal. I will have no interest in the situation, although they've gotten some new talents, and their healing, it does seem it's not terrible. It's certainly better than Warriors at this point, now that Warriors don't have that massive Ignore Pain shielding that they used to. But it's still, I don't know, it feels very basic, the whole Brewmaster tank model. I don't really like it at all, especially for 5-mans, but it is extremely, extremely strong for any situation where you're going to take a very large hit and you have to shrug off that very large hit. And that is why Brewmaster is always going to be a very good tank for raids. But to me, for dungeons, it's useless, because you're never going to have that massive hit. Then you're not going to have to, you know, like basically it's like you get hit really, really hard and then you don't tank again for a while. And that is what their absolute strength is, without question. Their offense is still interesting. I mean, I've always liked rushing Jade Wind. You know, when it was spinning crane kick or whatever, it was one of my favorite abilities in the game, and I really liked playing them. But, you know, I think at this point, if somebody were to come along and say, man, you are really biased against Brewmaster, I wouldn't be able to defend myself. So, I mean, it's just the truth. I don't like the tank. I'm really bitter about what's changed. So if you guys have any more opinions on Brewmaster, I'd love to hear them down below. But they're a tank that I probably will not be playing at max level on the alpha or the beta, whatever it is now. So, and then finally it takes us to Blood DK. This is the one, obviously, that I'm the most experienced with, the one that I will be maining, in case people still don't understand that. My Blood DK will be my main, and I haven't been playing him a lot recently because my belt got taken away. But yesterday and today, I started doing some dungeons, trying to get a belt, actually. I did 4 dungeons, still can't get a fucking belt. It's frustrating. But anyway, I think I might actually re-level up a Blood DK when character copies eventually come in 2019. And then we'll maybe be able to see a little bit more about their strengths and weaknesses. But right now, my only real complaint about Blood is that it's just the availability of haste and the scaling of such. It's very, very low. I don't know what to say about it. I have 9% haste, first of all. That's extremely low. I mean, 9% haste, I would have to take off almost all my gear in Legion to have 9% haste. So that's bad. And I definitely will urge you guys to realize that is why Blood DK plays so slow. But they also, you know, regardless of that, even if they had 40%, 30, whatever, 35% haste again, like I do on Legion, I still feel like they lack that crispness that they have in Legion, and that is almost exclusively because of how weak Dancing Rune Weapon is. But I will amend my position on that, because recently, I don't know how or why this changed, but I started, you know, these dungeons I started doing, maybe it's just because I have a fresh perspective now, but Dancing Rune Weapon with 2, maybe 3 Blood Boils within it is an insane amount of DPS. In fact, I did a bunch of heroics, even without a belt, which is kind of not great. But anyway, did a bunch of heroics, pulling 2 packs at once, Dancing Rune Weapon, 3 blood boils, I'm doing like 16k DPS. Now, I'm sure that other tanks are going to be able to do a lot more DPS than that, a lot easier, especially like Demon Hunter and Warrior, because their CDs they line up a lot more like cognitively. But this is insane, actually. Blood Boil right now, I don't know. It's probably going to get nerfed. I wouldn't be surprised, but it is like 50% of my damage on AoE, which, you know, isn't surprising. Heartstrike used to be a lot stronger, obviously, with the artifact and the synergy with it, but Blood Boil is like 50% of my damage on Trash. Now, Death and Decay also seems like it's gotten stronger too. Since, again, it's been so long since I've kept up on these things. I played it so much and then I kind of burned myself out, so I gave myself a rest. And now coming back to it, it's like I'm rediscovering things that I didn't expect. And Death and Decay is actually doing a lot more damage than I expected it to. So originally I would have said Blood Decay's problem is going to be Snap Threat outside of Blood Boil. Like, you know, you only have 2 charges. And it's still a problem. If you don't have Blood Boil up, you're not going to be able to get any threat. If there's like 5 mobs that are running at you and you have no blood boils, what do? I don't know. Death and Decay is not going to be enough, but it's definitely better than I expected. Their self-healing is still absurd. I wish I recorded the dungeons I did because it's unbelievable. I'm doing like 20k HPS on large packs. It's just absolutely insane, man. That 15% leech talent is so good. They seemingly nerfed Bloodworm's melee attack, so I stopped using that. And I don't know if that's true or not. It seems like it has been nerfed, but there's no documentation on it. But regardless, an insane amount of self-healing, unbelievable. I'm not quite as solo, but this is, of course, I don't even have a belt on. So what am I talking about? I'm lamenting the fact that I couldn't solo a heroic at 309 item level without a belt on. It's whatever. Blood DK is extremely strong, guys. So anyway, I'm very happy about the tanking situation, and I'm going to continue to learn and play them. My goals here are to get every, probably minus Brewmaster, to get at least the top 4 to 120. I'm already got almost 3. Demon Hunter will be 120 by the next time I stream beta, without question, and then it's just whether or not I can get Warrior to 120 in that time, or I'm going to have to stream more of it. But at that point, I want to start doing, like, ideally, once I have the goal, I want to start doing, so I'd log on my Death Knight, do a 5-man. Log on my Demon Hunter, do a 5-man. Log on my Paladin, do a 5-man. Log on my Warrior, and then just keep going. I don't know how long that's going to take, if that's a 4-hour thing or not, but go through them all and kind of give my, you know, just let people see the comparisons, the direct comparisons. If all 120 and doing heroic, it should be very easy to make these comparisons. So that's my goal. But anyway, thanks for watching. I'm going to let you guys go. We'll see you guys in the next one. This was kind of just like a primer, and there's going to be a lot more math and, you know, like the tier list type comparisons where we make hard delineations between each. So anyway, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys in the next one.